Alright, hello. Today's lesson we're going to be just practicing writing methods more, and a really good site for this is the coding bat. So basically, I'm going to go through a warm-up question with you, do one coding bat after that with you, kind of code it together, and then I'll have you work on some individually on your own. Alright, so that's basically the plan. And so I want to start with a warm-up question here where we're doing a method and again, a method's a little piece of code that does one specific task. And this one, we want to count the repeated letters in a word. So basically, Aaron would have one pair of repeated letters, A to A. Balloon has two because LL and then OO, and music has none. So we're going to return an int that represents how many double letters there are in input word. So pause the video and see if you can sketch out what the code would look like. At the very least, sketch out like an algorithm or process of steps, even if you can't get the actual code. All right, pause the video and then I'll be back with you. Okay, so I'm going to break this down a little bit by looking at an example word, specifically Aaron. All right, and so here's the indices, right? And basically we want to have a loop I that goes letter by letter. So I is basically going to go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, 1, 2, 3. And one of the parts is weird is normally we want to go all the way to 4, like to the end of the indexes, but we're checking like the letter, and basically the algorithm is going to be check the letter and see if it equals the next letter, right? And if they are equal, increase your count by 1, right? So basically we're going to get the letter, which is going to be substring of I to I plus 1. So like when I is 0, it'll do 0 to 1. When I is 1, we'll do 1 to 2, right? And that'll get the letter we're on, the current letter. But then to get the next one, we're going to call substring and do I plus 1 to I plus 2. And that'll get the next letter that comes after the one we're currently on, right? So if we were on A, it would be index of 1, so we do 1 to 2. And then this would do from 2 to 3. So it'd be 2 to 3, and that would get the R. Right, so the problem is we don't want to be on 4 because if I gets all the way to 4, then we'll be calling substring from 4 to 5, which is fine. That'll get us the N. But then the second one, the I plus 1 to I plus 2, would call from 5 to 6, and that's going to get array index out of bounds. Okay, so we're going to loop to, let's think about this. So the length, right, the length here would be 5, and we want to go up to or equal to length minus 2, because we can go all the way up to 3. So we're going to go less than or equal to length minus 2, or less than length minus 1 if you want to do it that way. But I'm going to do less than or equal to length minus 2 so that we end on this spot. And then we'll check this letter against the next one. And if that's equal, then it'll count. But then we don't have to check the end because there is no next letter for the end. Okay, so that's the idea of the loop. It's going to loop. So I is going to go basically, I is going to go from 0 to less than or equal to length minus 2. All right, and then we're going to call the two substrings to get the letters, and if they're equal, we're going to increase the count by 1, right, and return that at the end. So here's what the code would look like. So I'm going to do my into my count of how many repeat letters there are is 0, and then I'm going to return that at the end, right, however many I count double letters, and then to count them, I'm going to use my loop. So int I starts at 0, I goes less than or equal to, we already talked about this, length minus 2, or less than length minus 1, however you want to do it, plus plus I, so we're going to loop through the positions except the last one, essentially. And then we are going to do, get the two letters, so string letter 1 equals word dot substring from I to I plus 1, and then the second letter, I'm going to do I plus 1 to I plus 2, and then if letter 1 dot equals, and I can do equals ignore case probably, letter 2, then we'll do a plus plus to the count. So if they're equal, increase the count. All right, and that should do it to count the repeat letters or double letters in a word. Okay, So here is the one I'm going to do with you on CodingBat. You can either just watch this, or if you really want to type it up together, you can see where it is. It's in warm-up to string X. And we have to take in a string and remove all the X's, which when I first read that, I'm like, yeah, that doesn't sound too bad. Except if there's an X, the very start or the end should not be removed. So basically, I think what that means is we're never going to remove the first or last letter, whether it's an X or not, right? But any other ones, any other X's, so like on this one, these two X's would get removed, right? The X and X there. Right here, the three X's in the middle will get removed, all right? So it's a little bit trickier because we have to, remove all the X's except if it starts with X or ends with X. So I would encourage you to pause the video and think of the algorithm here. See if you can sketch out how you want to do this. Okay, so when I think about this, I basically would start and make a blank string and then loop through each letters. And basically, if it's not an X, I'm going to append it to that new string, that blank string that I started with. All right. And then the only other thing is I'm going to append it if it's not an X, or if it is the first letter or the last letter, then for sure I'm going to append it. So our condition is going to be weird because I got to think this through now. So we want to do if it's not an X, or if it's in the first or the last spot, then we want to add it to our result string. So I think that's what the right condition will look like, is not X, or it has an index of 0, or it has an index of, this would be length -1, would be that spot. Okay, so if that's not super clear, I'll try to basically sketch it out here a little bit more. Here are the indexes for that string. So it's a length 6 because it's got 6 letters, right? And so it has indexes 0 to 5. And basically I'm going to make a result string. I'm going to set it equal to nothing, literally nothing at first, and then go through, and as long as it's not an X, or it's in the first or last spot, it gets appended to it. So here, the blank string, when we're in position 0, it will take that X because it's part of position 0. Then it won't take the next one, so it'll skip over that. But then it'll hit this H, and that's not an X, so it'll append it to the string. So we'll have XH. Sorry, that doesn't look very good there. XH. Okay, and then we'll keep going and say, okay, this X, it's an X, so it doesn't count. And then, yep, here we hit an I, that's not an X, so we'll append it to the end of it. So now we'll have an I on the end. And then we'll keep going and we'll say, well, this one's an X, but it happens to be at the end, so we will append it to our result string, giving us what we see here for the output for this. Okay, so we just got to have a loop that loops from I equals 0 to less than the length, which is the normal loop, right? Length is 6, so we go less than the length to get 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for that particular string. Okay, and then again, if it is not an X, or it's the first or last spot, then we're going to append it to our result string. All right, let's give it a shot here in the CodingBat. So I'm going to start with string result equals nothing. And then again, I want to return that once the loop is done running. So now I'm going to do for int I equals 0, I is less than string.length, so we're going to get each letter plus plus I. All right, and then I would do a string letter equals str.substring of I to I plus 1, which we've done a bunch. It's just the letters one at a time. And now the if part, I'm going to do if letter is not equal to X. So I'm just going to do equals X. And I should maybe do equals ignore case, but we'll see if it's okay. And I'm going to say if it's not equal to that. So if it's not equal to X, or it's in the first spot, so that would be I equals 0. So if we're not equal to X, or we're in the first spot, the 0 spot, or I is in the last spot, so or if I equals string dot length minus 1, that would be the last spot. If it's any of those things are true, I'm going to append it to my result string. All right, and that, I believe, cross our fingers, close our eyes, and see if that works. Okay, it looks like it's working okay. Please know that there would be other ways to do this. I think another route, if you don't want to have this complex OR, is you could just guarantee that the first and last letter get added. So you could make result equal to the first letter, right? So you could just do something like this so that it is the first letter. Result starts as the first letter, and then you start at 1, right? And loop that way. And then you could also end it 1 early and then just append the last letter to the end too. That'd have been another way to do it. Make this loop end 1 early and then guarantee with the last letter on the end. So that would be like result plus equals str.substring, and the last letter would be at length minus 2 to length minus 1, I believe. No, length minus 1 to length, I think is what it would be. So you do, no, actually you could just do the substring where it takes from that position all the way to the end. So that would be string.length minus 1. I think that would take from that last one all the way to the end. So that would work too, I believe. Looks like maybe not. I must have messed that up somehow. But suffice it to say, there would be other ways when you should be able to do it without having to necessarily do this loop. Okay, that's it. Thank you for watching. Up next is for you to complete some of the coding bats on your own. I think, if I remember this correctly, or it hasn't changed since then, but I think you're going to have to complete 3 out of 4 of the coding bats, and then there's help videos for them if you get stuck. I think I put in here, here's a ranking of their difficulties. So they kind of go in increasing difficulty. So try to get 3 out of 4 done, and if you get stuck, there's help videos to watch. Okay, that's all. Have a good day.